Hi everybody, welcome to Muscle Essentials lesson number 4. My name is Greg. This here is a Scottish looking lad. He's my sidekick Sparky. Say hello, Sparky. You never know, I actually used to have a Scottish accent, for real. When I was learning to talk, my nanny was from Scotland, and so I learned to speak with a Scottish accent. True story. Anyway, welcome to Muscle Essentials lesson number 4. Before we get into lesson number 4, we are going to do a review of lesson number 3, which was all about connective tissue. And in that lesson, we gave you examples of the various types of connective tissue in your body. We showed you how they interacted specifically with muscle using a turkey drumstick. We showed you the various layers of tissue on the board, going down to the deepest layers of muscle. And we also compared muscle to a tropical fruit. And that was lesson number 3. If you want to check it out, it's on whatever platform you're watching this on, whether it's IGTV or YouTube or my website. For lesson number 4, lesson number 4, greglenko.com, if you want to follow along on the website. Under the heading Muscle Essentials, and the submenu would be naming of muscles or muscle names or something like that. I'm sure you'll find it. Now this lesson should be about 15 minutes, and it's important to know the names of muscles, because once you know the names of muscles all have descriptors, and that will tell you a lot of information about the muscle. And these use Latin terminology. Okay, the names are rooted in the Latin language. So when you go to the doctor and he's talking gibberish to you, it's actually usually some sort of a Latin derivative. So it'll help you understand if the doctor's talking to you about what you've done, if you've torn something in your rotator cuff or what have you. Anyway, it's going to be about 15 minutes, as I said, and I'm just going to use my notes. Feel free to follow along on the website, download it, print it off, whatever you want to do. It's all good by me. It's good by Sparky too. So let's get into it. The first 3 names we're going to go over use the descriptor that describe the direction of the muscle fascicles. And if you remember what a muscle fascicle is from lesson number 3, I'll tell you again anyway. A muscle fascicle, if you remember, is a group of 10 muscle cells or more. And in bodybuilders that are really, really lean and dry, you can see the direction of the muscle because the muscle's so dried, okay, and they're so cut and lean. So these 3 names use the Latin word for the direction of the muscles. For instance, rectus. Rectus means parallel to the midline of the body. Okay, parallel to the midline. So that would be up and down Sparky's midline. So you have rectus abdominis. But you also have rectus femoris. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be right on the midline. It just has to be parallel to the midline. And the femur is parallel to the midline. And a lot of other body parts use a lot of similar language for describing them too. I should probably get and tell you that. We're concerned more with muscles though. So there's also transverse, and you have transverse abdominis. Transverse means perpendicular to the midline. Okay, so rectus, transverse, and there's also oblique. You've heard of your obliques, okay? That means diagonal to the midline. You have internal and external obliques. Now there's muscles named for their size. The descriptors describe the size of the muscles. So maximus and minimus. And you've heard of gluteus maximus on your butt and gluteus minimus. Well, maximus means largest. Minimus means smallest, and there's also medius. So gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, and gluteus minimus. Did I say the same one twice? I don't think so. Okay. So there's muscles now also called longus and brevis. Longus means long. Brevis means short. So you have muscles called adductor longus or adductor brevis. There is another one that you are very familiar with, latissimus dorsi. Okay, latissimus is the root we're going for, okay? The descriptor. Latissimus means widest. Now, dorsi is also a descriptor, and if you think of a dorsal fin on a shark or a dolphin or a fish, it's on their back. The dorsal fin is the back fin. So latissimus dorsi simply translates into wide back muscle. Then you have magnus, meaning large. You have something called adductor magnus in your leg, your groin. And you have major and minor muscles, okay? And you have several of these groups around your body. For instance, pectoralis major and pectoralis minor, okay? The chest muscle, pectoralis major and pectoralis minor. Simply meaning larger and smaller. And lastly, vastus, which means huge. And if you think of vastus lateralis, okay, it's a muscle. And you know that muscle, when you get punched in the side of the leg, that's the muscle you get the Charlie horse in, okay? We also have muscles named for their shape. So the descriptor in the name would be deltoid, and the shape would be triangular. So, triangular. And you also have deltoid ligaments, as I mentioned. These descriptors are used in names for other things. So you have deltoid ligaments as well. You have your trapezius, okay? And the definition is trapezoid. If you know what a trapezoid looks like, it's something like this, and back, okay? Serratus, which actually comes from a word, was it serratere or something like that? Serrare. My Latin's not great, but it comes from the Latin word meaning to saw. And if you think of the serrated edge of a knife or a saw, okay, if you look at a bodybuilder and you see those things in here, they sort of look like they look like a serrated edge. Okay, and you also have them in your back. So you have three groups of serratus muscles on each side. So you have serratus anterior, serratus posterior superior, and serratus posterior inferior. Just some extra information. You have rhomboids. Rhomboid means diamond, and your rhomboids are in your back. Here's a fun one, orbicularis. Okay, orbicularis means circular, and you have a muscle called orbicularis oculi. There's also orbicularis oris, but I don't want to get confused. Orbicularis oculi, and when you flex or contract your orbicularis oculi, you're winking. That's it. It's a round muscle right here. You wink. Okay, orbicularis oculi. There's pectinate, which means comb-like, and you have a muscle called pectineus. There's piriformis. A lot of people know about piriformis syndrome or sciatica. Okay, that's because of the piriformis muscle. Piriformis means pear-shaped. Okay, and your piriformis is a deep muscle here, and when it spasms, it puts pressure on your sciatic nerve, and then you get that pain down the back of your leg into your foot. Ask any pregnant woman or a woman who's been pregnant. There's a good chance she's had it. Another fun one is called platus. Okay, that's the descriptor, is platus. It means flat. And the muscle name is actually platysma. And when you go like this, right here, this is all platysma. And quadratus. Okay, don't get this confused with quadriceps. You have a muscle called quadratus femoris. Quadratus means square. Okay, quadratus femoris, two descriptors there. One means femur, but quadratus means square. It's not quadricep, okay? That's a different, we'll get into that, okay? There's also gracilis, which means slender. It happens to be that's the name of the muscle, gracilis as well. And it's the second longest muscle in the body, I believe, next to sartorius. So that's all the muscles that we're going to talk about for shape, okay? Those are the descriptors for shape. Now we have muscles named for their actions. And the descriptors, the Latin root, would be flexor and extensor. So you have flexor muscles and extensor muscles. You have groups like they're all over your body. You have a lot of them. And so a flexor, what a flexor does, it decreases the joint angle. What an extensor does is increases a joint angle. So anatomical position, palms pointing forward. Okay, my palm is forward. So a flexor, flexor carpi radialis, which is a muscle here, is going to decrease the angle of a joint. An extensor will increase the angle of the joint. You have abductors and adductors, and we say that because you know, if your hearing's not great, you won't know what muscle we're referring to. That was easy to say. Abductors move a bone away from the midline, so it would move a bone that way. This is called abduction, okay? And an adductor moves something toward the midline, okay? And you have muscles like that in various parts of your body. There's levator, which, if you think of an elevator, it elevates a body part, okay? Then you have depressors as well, a muscle called depressor. The depressor depresses a body part. So for instance, a fun one is depressor labii inferioris. So inferioris is also a descriptor, which means it's under something, inferior to something. So depressor is going to depress a body part, labii inferioris, and it's right here. And when you pout, that's it. That's the muscle. There's supinator muscles. A supinator will turn the palm anteriorly, okay? And then you have pronator muscles, which will turn the palm posterior. Now, in anatomical position, that would be posterior and that would be anterior. And if you think, to help you remember, carrying a bowl of soup would be supination, okay? Now one that, yeah, just get it over with. Sphincter. Sphincter. Go ahead, get it out of your system. Sphincter. You actually have about 50 or more in your body. Sphincter decreases the size of an opening. So, yeah. Sphincter. There's tensor muscles. A tensor muscle makes a body part rigid. For instance, tensor fascia lata. It's a muscle of the hip. And you have rotator muscles. And these muscles, these rotator muscles, rotates a bone around its longitudinal axis. Longitudinal axis, you remember from lesson number 1. Okay? And you have those in your back and they just turn your spine. So that's all for the action of muscles. Now we have a few for the number of origins of a muscle. So for instance, your biceps, it's not called your biceps because there's 2 muscles. It's called your biceps because there are 2 origins. And an origin just means where the muscle attaches to the bone closest to the body. So it's also called a proximal insertion, but we'll go with origin. So your biceps actually has 2 origins. One is here in the coracoid process and the other one is right up here, okay, underneath. It's not 2 muscles. If you want to go over the muscles, we can. There is coracobrachialis, biceps brachialis that we just said. There's brachioradialis, and then there's brachialis. Okay, these are 4 muscles up here on your humerus. Now, the reason it's brachialis because your brachii is, if I recall correctly, a Greek word for branch. And if you think of your trunk, and then you have your branch. Okay, that's why it's called brachii, your brachium. There's also your triceps because there are 3 origins to your triceps. Not 3 muscles. There's actually 2 muscles. Okay, you have your triceps, and you also have a little muscle right here, just behind your right behind your elbow here. It's going to be a really good show. Called anconeus. And you have a medial head, a lateral head, and an intermediate head, I believe it is. Or a deeper head. I think that's what it's called, deep head. Lastly, for muscles named for their origins, your quadriceps. We mentioned it earlier. There are 4 origins to your quadriceps, okay? Quadriceps femoris. Now we have muscles named for the location. For instance, temporalis. Your temporalis muscle is right on your temple. And we have muscles named for the origin and insertion, which would be sternocleidomastoid. This muscle, sternum, clavicle, mastoid, it attaches at your mastoid process. It actually goes beyond that, but that's the way the muscle's named. And that is it for lesson number 4. Hopefully you can remember some of this stuff or just review it yourself. And hopefully you have a better understanding of what it is. Next lessons are really good. What we're going to be doing is finally getting to bones. And we're going to go over naming of bones and things like that. We're first going to go over the axial and the appendicular skeleton. There's 2 different ones, axial skeleton and appendicular. We'll learn why you have two skeletons. And we'll learn the different bones, and we'll learn bony landmarks, and that's really going to give you a fantastic understanding of muscles because you need to know the bony landmarks because that's where the muscles attach. So that's it for today. On behalf of my Scottish little laddie friend, Spelke, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. All out of scotch.